Hello and welcome. And today we'll be talking about securing your password on the command line. This is a good idea to do, especially if you're like in a secure environment that you want to try to prevent password exposure as much as possible. And some a good way of doing this is whenever you want to potentially use your password on the command line, um, you'll want to first read your password into a variable silently. And this can be done by doing a read space dash s and then the variable that you want to put your password into. So here we're going to just say my password. And now we'll go to the next line. And right now what it's doing is it's waiting for you to type in your password. So I'm going to type in my password and then enter. And you'll notice that you get the command line back. And so now the password is in that variable. But if you notice, it's not in your output on your screen. And if I look at my history, um, I'll see that the end of my history does not have any password in my history as well, because otherwise if you'd use your password on the command line, it would go into your history, and then that would be this file here. And so you're actually putting your password into a file by using it on the command line. And so it's best to try to not use your password on the command line as if you can get away with it. This is primarily for like production environments or very important passwords that you have. If you're working in like a test lab or a demonstration like we're doing here, it really doesn't matter as much. So if I just echo out the my password variable, we could see what the password is. But still, that only outputs it to the screen. It doesn't actually put it into a file. And it's only when we do something like this, my password, oh, that now if I do a tail on the history, we'll see that I now have my password. I put it on the command line, and now it's within the history of that um, within the history file. And so passing it into the variable is much more beneficial. So um, then if we want to run a command to be able to utilize the password, we would just use the variable my underscore password instead of the actual password itself. And so it would provide, it would allow you to use that instead of using your password on the command line. Now, if there's another scenario where you want to potentially automate something, um, you want to try to use another mechanism to store your password in a secure location, um, so you don't have to use it in the command line. So, for example, with MySQL, for logging into MySQL, typically you would do like a MySQL -u and then a -p, and then it will prompt you for your password. Or you could do a -p and put my password on the command line. That's something that you don't want to do. So in this regard, you can't, if you're putting that in like a cron tab or an automated script, you don't want to put your password in that script itself, especially if you're submitting that script to like a code repository like GitHub or something like that, because you don't want that password to then get put into that repository. So with like MySQL, you can create um, a, a password file or a local configuration file where you can put your password in there. And so if I go into so the tilde signifies my home directory. The first dot is that it's a hidden file. And if I edit that and then I put I put client, and then user is equal to me, and then password is equal to my password. And then if I save that, one of the first things that I'm going to want to do with that is I'm going to want to modify the permissions on that, because by default, you'll see here that everyone can read this file. So just because I created it, I'm the only one that can write to it or root, but everyone can read it. So the first thing I want to do is do a chmod to 600 on that file. So now if I list the properties of that file, I can now see that I can read and write to the file, but no one else can read the file. And so that helps protect the password that I'm storing inside of there, so that only I can read it or only root can read it. So if another user has access to the server, they can't go into my home directory and read my configuration file. So that helps to secure the password there. MySQL also has other mechanisms for further securing the password even more, so that it's not in plain text within the file. And so I will be doing an additional blog post on that. But this just gives an idea of how to stop using your password on the command line. So by default, MySQL would, now if I did like a MySQL, it would use the username and password in that .my.cnf as a default. So I wouldn't have to type -u, the username, and -p, the password, on the command line. I could just run MySQL. So that would help prevent me from typing in the password on the command line. And so those are a couple little quick tips to try to help add some security into your daily routine. Um, I hope this was some benefit and some help, and please subscribe and have a good day. Thank you.